Hello and welcome to the first Sova Middle East Bitesize event. I'm Becky, a Chartered Occupational Psychologist, and Jonathan Rook is the Managing Director here. Thank you all for coming. It's great to see some familiar faces. So what we're going to be doing is running a monthly series of bite-size events. We want to create a community of like-minded professionals who are interested in assessment and development in the region in order to share insights and discuss new technologies and new ways of working. So each month we're going to have a different topic. So if there's anything in particular that you would like to see us talk about, please do let us know. We're also looking for people to be panelists, to be interviewed, and to participate in other ways. So again, please do get in touch. This morning, we're going to give you an introduction on how to run a virtual assessment centre. For either assessment or development purposes. We're going to be sharing insights into how Sova has already partnered with organisations to do this and how we can digitalise assessment processes to make them fairer, more reliable and more efficient. And then at the end, we will have a discussion. So we should be finished by 10:45, 10:50. If you have any questions throughout, please do let us know. Please either use the chat box or wave your hand and we can open up your microphone. We are also available at the end of the discussion as well if you have any specific questions you want to ask us about. So I'm going to now hand over to John to start the presentation. Thank you.
So just in terms of our approach to assessment, what we try to do is combine the best of science and occupational psychology in terms of using scientifically rigorous assessments with a solid scientific base, but then blending that with technology. So one of the things we've been doing since our inception in 2015, but especially last year, was to increase our capability on the platform in terms of making everything fully virtual, enhancing the candidate experience, improving our ability to configure and customize for clients, and also working with some of our scoring algorithms and also AI and machine learning, which is continuously improving. Just a reminder in terms of what we have on our platform, we have obviously blended assessments, which we've been working with since 2015. Where we had some proprietary IP around the kind of standard tests you'd expect to see from a psychometric perspective. But we've now also added numerous different tools to the platform, such as video interview, 360, and specifically our digital assessment centre, which we've been working with since 2015. But last year, we increased the capability so that it's fully virtual in the sense that it now enables clients to run their assessment or development centres through a fully virtual platform. And surrounding this is obviously creating a unified candidate experience. So what we're really trying to do is create something which is enjoyable, interactive and engaging for candidates so they can perform to their best ability, and then also have some predictive analytics, keep the data in one place so that it can be useful for future insights. So as I mentioned, I won't spend too long on this, but we have a multi-method, multi-stage assessment. So that just means that we're using lots of different types of assessment, not just psychometrics, in our assessment centres. And we're trying to make this engaging, seamless, and obviously consistent and high quality. So it's all of the things that you'd expect to see from an assessment process, but just that it's been virtualized. And what we're aiming to do is have every data point, every metric that we capture is centralized in the dashboard and is available for clients to use and download. In terms of where we are in terms of assessing talent, as I mentioned, it's not just psychometric data, it could be competency data, maybe from exercises, maybe from performance reviews. We also look at interview data. This is where some of our scoring intelligence comes in for automated scoring of interviews. We also can look at things like personal aspirations and work experience. But the end goal is to have a combined intelligent output. This could be reports, it could be Excel files and data extracts. But ultimately, what we need to be able to do is still have the things that hiring managers would expect in terms of assessing best fit and the best candidates for the role, but also from a development perspective, it could be high potential or assessing readiness for promotion. Just in terms of virtualization becoming the new normal for assessment, so there was a survey last year from the Institute of Student Employers, and if you have a look at some of the metrics that they captured, you can see that the traditional face-to-face recruitment activities are definitely on the decline in the sense that they've either cancelled them or reduced them. And what we see is a very clear trend around increasing of delivery online or over the telephone, but predominantly this is now digital. So things like assessment centres, interviews, which obviously used to be face-to-face, are very much now virtual, and that's accepted as this is the new normal and the way that assessment and selection needs to be done going forward, for the obvious reasons that we've seen last year with the pandemic. Just a quick word on the difference between digital and virtual assessment centres, because there's different platforms on the market. We've been working with digital assessments since about 2015, where we created something for one of the UK airlines, which was effectively a paperless experience for candidates and assessors. So whilst we weren't doing it virtually, we were still doing this in person, and you still had assessors interacting face-to-face at an assessment centre. And what we did was we put all the materials on a digital platform, so it enabled the scoring, the wash up and the feedback all to be on the platform. But where we've moved to last year, as I mentioned, was to virtualize this process. So we basically integrated conference call technology with our platform, and that could be any conference provider. It could be Zoom, it could be Teams, it could be WebEx. There's no specific restrictions around that, but basically what it does is replicates the face-to-face assessment events, and it allows us to administer the different multi-method assessments for any volume of candidates, really, anything from a few candidates through to hundreds at a time. There's no cap on the platform. And so what we've tried to do is make this as seamless as possible in terms of connecting candidates and assessors and making sure everyone's connected at the right time for their different assessments. And also there's obvious cost efficiencies from doing this. And the virtual experience doesn't need to be downgraded in any sense. We've actually found from the feedback that we've had from clients, some of the case studies we've run, that actually assessing virtually has its merits from an assessment point of view, but also very clearly from a candidate point of view as well. Just in terms of the way that we approach the platform and the assessment centre, we have pre and post event interfaces and activities. So typically before an assessment centre, candidates can log in, or participants can log in if it's for development, and they can read some guidance, they can complete some pre-work and preparation, they can complete their psychometrics, and they can even choose their assessment slot if we enable that functionality. And then from an assessor side as well, they can log into the platform, they can again view guidance, view the invitations and the schedules, and have a look at the candidates they're going to be assessing. They might even be able to access CVs if we require candidates to upload that information onto the platform. And they can do all this virtually. There's no need for them to go into the office and print out CVs as would have been done in the past. And then after the event, we have automated feedback reports of various different complexities. We can combine these into one single output, so you can have the results of psychometrics as well as the results from the assessments themselves. And from an assessor perspective, the live results dashboard also enables wash up and further consideration of candidates to be viewed as soon as they finish scoring, which is quite a powerful technique in the sense that it increases the speed of the wash up sessions, which used to be, a couple of hours after the assessment center. So you can very quickly move candidates to the next stage or regret them if that is one of the requirements of the assessment. So some of the key challenges when considering a virtual AC, obviously there is some work to do to set everything up. The first thing is around technology. So obviously organizations differ in terms of their technology maturity levels. At a minimum, candidates would need access to a laptop or tablet device, as well as web conferencing software and webcams, obviously embedded into those devices. And for some organizations, that's more of a challenge than others, particularly we found with organizations that might have operations in different parts of the world on different platforms where maybe not everyone in the organization has access to that. So that's one thing to bear in mind if you're considering virtualizing your assessment centers. The second thing is obviously scheduling and organizing. There is still some work to be done from a recruiter or a hiring manager perspective to organize everything in a similar fashion to how we used to do it in the past. But we've got some technology to help do that. I'm going to show you on the platform the scheduling tool, which is a simple upload and scheduling of candidates with assessors. We're also in the next month introducing a automated scheduling tool, which is based on algorithmic data, which basically will understand the volumes and parameters of an assessment center and then automatically schedule people in the most efficient way. You also need to think about connecting the candidates and assessors. So what web conferencing technology do you want to use? You don't have to use Zoom, although Zoom is obviously a very good platform. You could use any technology that you wanted, but obviously that just needs to be thought through in terms of access and account permissions and whether you have the right subscription to enable the volumes that you're looking at from an assessment perspective. And then from a content and activity, so this is what would you like the candidates actually to complete as part of the assessment center. And what we've been able to do in the past with lots of the clients that are using this platform is to take their existing exercises and we digitize them and put them on our platform. We upload the content, case study content, group exercise materials, and we make those interactive. We have graphic designers to do that and to improve the look and feel from paper-based. And then we upload the assessor matrices and the scoring matrices so that assessors can then score that digitally. And then at the end, we also have, there's some guidance around wash up and decision making. So there's different options we can include on the dashboard. And typically, from a recruitment perspective, we might often be asked to assign some type of rating for each of the candidates. So that's also possible on the platform. Okay, so in terms of some of the lessons we've learned, in terms of the experience we have of doing this, the first thing is around testing the process. So once everything is on the platform, once everything is configured, we found that the best results obviously come from testing this several times over, probably with a pilot group within your organization. So if this is something you're interested in doing, we'd very much recommend to test it as much as possible before launch. The opportunity to practice for assessors is also important, so they're familiar with the technology and the interface, how they need to score, the type of write-ups they need to submit as notes on the system, because these can be reflected in reports. So the practice opportunity is also important. We've also found considering different scenarios. So what would happen, for example, if the web conferencing software wasn't working properly, with some kind of account permissions issue, it's worth thinking about different contingency plans, responding to those different scenarios. Then also from an IT and security perspective, it's also important to make sure that all the platforms you're using are whitelisted and are not going to be blocked by IT and security. This is probably more of an issue when you have a global workforce. So we found sometimes that there can be blocks that are put in place by internal teams, so they just need to be thought through. And obviously the clear briefing and communications, as you would do for a paper-based assessment center, they just need to be thought through in terms of putting those together and then sending out the different communications to candidates. Support rooms as well, we found are useful on the day, so not just putting candidates directly into a virtual room with their assessor, having a support room where candidates can effectively come for a virtual breakout, talk to a facilitator. That's also a very useful functionality that we found works well on these virtual assessment centers. And obviously the group size is still something that needs to be considered in the sense that we don't want group sizes to be too large, otherwise it becomes quite unmanageable with all the different rooms. So keeping the assessment center to a reasonable size is also a tip for best practice. And obviously making best use of the technology available and the platforms that you have available in the organization. And ultimately capitalizing on the efficiencies is around making sure that this is being rolled out as widely as possible across the recruitment practice. And lastly, making candidates as comfortable as possible. So obviously millennials might be more used to the technology than some other generations. So just making sure that all your candidates, to give them all an equal chance and to make it a fair process, making them comfortable, the familiarization with the platform in advance is also another tip that we've seen from implementing this type of engagement. Okay, so I'll do a very quick platform walkthrough so you can see some of the different interfaces. So I mentioned the candidate and the assessor interface, and then I will also give you a quick preview of the administration platform as well, so you can see how all this links up, and then we can move into further questions from that. Okay, so just starting with the admin platform, just to give you an example of our current platform that we're using. We can set the time zone to any time zone across the world, which is useful from a scheduling perspective. The phases that you see here relate to the activities and the information and the different aspects of the homepage. So you can see here we've got some cognitive ability and personality assessments, but we also have the actual assessment exercises. So we have a group exercise, a case study, and an interview. There's a breakout room as well, which is used for briefing the candidates. We actually invite candidates to give feedback after the center as well. In this example, we have some diversity monitoring as well, because the employer might wish to capture that type of information. There's welcome screens, and there's another couple of assessments here, an SJT and a learnability assessment as well. All of these exercises are configured in our content management system in the back end, which we have access to, but they can be changed in terms of the reordering of the different phases, and they can be edited from here as well, which is useful. And then in terms of the participants, simply you can add participants either through an import from Excel, or you can add each person individually. If you're running a relatively small assessment campaign, you can do that here on the platform as well. And the same for assessors. You can import your assessor group from an Excel file, and you can download a template here to enable you to do that. Or you can add them individually, set their name, any default languages which you might be using, And then you can set their passwords as well here, so they can have access directly to the platform. And I won't show you the results now because we will come back to that after I've shown you the other pages, but the schedule in terms of setting up the candidates to be assessed, I'm going to look at a schedule here for the 11th of February. If you had hundreds of candidates, you can search and filter by using these boxes here, but you can see here I've basically scheduled Becky for an interview, a case study, and a group exercise. You'll notice that we have two versions of each one. One of them is for the candidates and the other one is for the assessor. And here I can link my assessor to the candidates. And these links here relate to the web conferencing software. So this is just a demo link through Teams. But basically these links will appear on the homepage and the assessment homepages. And so I know, for example, at 11:28, if I click on this link, I will be connected with my assessor at the same time. Okay, so we'll have a quick look at the portal. So this is just a demo portal, which we've set up. And here you can see there's a number of different hotspots, which is the terminology we're using for these. But these are effectively assessment and information hotspots. You can present anything here that you like. You might even put a video. So there's a video here in this hotspot. It could be a message from the CEO or the hiring manager or whoever that you can add in there. As I mentioned, if you want to capture things like diversity, there's an option to do that. So you can start here and you can provide further information. And similar to how you would for other assessment processes, you can obviously assess different things like cognitive and personality assessments, and you can access those directly here as well. So this is a behavioral styles questionnaire. There's some instructions. And then we have our rate, rank, response options here as well. And they can move through the questionnaire. And so the same thing for cognitive skills as well. If I wanted some cognitive tests for the candidates, I have a verbal reasoning assessment here for them to do. Again, they're asked to read a passage of information and they have to respond with true, false, cannot say. And I'll just show you quickly the SJT. Again, these are becoming more and more popular, the situational judgment tests. We tend to create these from bespoke for clients rather than have anything off the shelf. But increasingly, we will have these things available off the shelf as well. But you can see here, they're asked to select the least, the most and the least effective response in the scenario. Okay, so they're ready. Once they're ready to access the assessment day, you can actually click on this hotspot here, which will take them through to the tasks that they've been given during the assessment center. So again, there might be some pre-work for them to complete, and there's some further information about the assessment center. And so here we've presented some information to the candidate and we've given them a small task to do. You might ask them to get familiar with leaders in the organization. So you might have a small introduction to say their potential line manager or one of their colleagues. And again, the virtual room will pop up here. So all the candidate needs to do at this point is just to click on this button and it will take them through to connect at the right time with these colleagues. So in terms of the assessment exercises, so there's an interview, presentation, and a group exercise. These are very much as you would expect. So the interview is obviously virtual, and again, they will be connected to the assessor via virtual room. They're given some instructions here. And they can just click on the button when they're ready to connect with the assessor. There might be a presentation for them to do as well. Again, they can connect into the virtual room by clicking this button here. And here we might give them some information download, or we can present it on the screen, whichever is the preference. And then similarly for the group exercise, we would present different information for them to consider. So you can see here, these are the materials that we would take from a paper-based point of view, and we would digitize these, do some further design on them if necessary. And this serves as the candidate stimulus material for them to read. And again, video, any type of multimedia can be included here, videos as well. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a sort of good idea about the candidate interface. Obviously, this can be branded in any way you want to. And then you might at the end just have a thank you message from the recruitment manager or the HR director or whoever you want to put in here, talking about next steps. So once the candidate has completed their assessment exercises and that's all been done, the assessor in parallel will have access to their own assessor portal. And here they can remind themselves about competencies, guidance for conducting interviews, some further guidance on best practice and assessment. So there's lots of resources for the assessors as well. When they actually want to assess and score the candidates, they can go into the schedule. So this one's set up for the 11th of February. And I can see my candidate is here, see the activity that relates to, and it was a virtual room where I assessed them. So once I'm ready, I can view their profile, actually have a look at further documents they've uploaded. So if they put a CV, if that's a requirement, they can download it there. And then I can go in and I can assess my candidates. So again, this is the virtual room link to connect me at the right time with Becky. And the date and the time is displayed at the top. So there's different configuration options, but basically the assessors can make notes anywhere on the screens where we've configured it. And then with the assessment matrix, the competency is displayed here. And they can, on a simple 1 to 5 or 1 to 4 or whatever scoring scale you're using, they can enter the scores here, which are averaged according to either round up or down, and they can be adjusted as well by the assessors here. So you can see it's very simple for the assessors to use. It's literally just either touch screen or click on a laptop, and they can record their scores. Okay, so I'll just finish scoring this one. Okay, so once they've finished scoring, they have further options to download reports and view the scores they've just entered. So they can see scores here as well in terms of what they've assigned for these different areas. And then the psychometrics will be also scored in the background as well. And if there are reports attached to the psychometrics, so we've got a couple of example reports here. We might have a development report, a recruitment report, again, which can be customized for the organization that we're working with. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good idea of the two interfaces we use for the virtual assessment centers. In the results dashboard, all of the different scores for the different phase activities are displayed here. And we have different options for overall scores or individual competency breakdowns related to each of these. This one's currently set up as an overall score, so the scores will appear here. And we can set up algorithms as well to determine overall scores at the end of all of these assessments, according to how we define it. You can set a status to completed, yes, no, maybe. These are configurable, so you could change this to whatever you would like. So I've said for this candidate, I've said no. For Becky, I might say maybe. And then there's further options available in terms of the report downloads here. So if you've got an integrated report set up, you can literally just click on a button and it will confirm which language I'd like it in. This one's actually set up for Arabic as well. I can just download this here and the request will be emailed to me directly as the hiring manager or the person with permissions. And just to show you, just to give you a demonstration of how what the overall scores look like. So this is for another demo where we had some psychometrics and some exercises. And what we've got here is a competency total score. So this is a 1 to 5 score. And we've set up the parameters in the background and we can have an overall score across the different assessments, which is a very useful thing to be able to see for all the candidates. And equally, if I wanted to download any of this, I can have it in 1 to 5 STEM. There's further detailed extracts with percentiles and that type of thing if you need it. You can also bulk download reports and all of the project level data. So one of the things we found clients really like about the unified platform is to have all the data in one place and available for them to download directly. Okay, I think that's it in terms of the demo. So just wanted to open that up for any further questions and discussion. Feel free to submit any questions on the Q&A and we can respond to those. Or if you would like to submit a specific question, we can also allow you to speak as well.
Hi, John.
Hi, Adnan. Hi, hello, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thank you. So yeah, I just had a question about how we can only invite the most suitable candidates to the online or digital assessment. So I guess what sort of software or other tools that you have that can help filter the candidates at the very top of the funnel?
Yeah, thanks, Adnan. I think what you can use is some screening tools up front. So you might have it split into 2 phases where you ask everyone to complete some typical screening tools, such as could be cognitive assessments or situational judgment, or some other critical questions which they need to answer. And you can still administer that on the platform. But there would be a decision point after that data is collected where you could select the candidates you want to progress to the next phase and complete an actual assessment center, because obviously it's relatively time consuming to do that for everyone. So yeah, I would probably recommend use some kind of screening assessments, which again you can do online, and then invite those selected people through to the next round. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does. Okay, fair enough. And are we able to design more technical case studies? So for example, if we wanted someone to do a financial modeling exercise for an hour or 2 hours followed by a presentation, is that something that you could support with?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we can put any type of content onto the platform. So we can, if there's a specific finance role that you're looking at, we could either upload the materials that you've got, or we can work with you to develop something. Obviously, where I've done things with CFOs in the past, we've had to bring in subject matter experts to really tap into some of those finance skills. But from a behavioural perspective, we have our Sova 38 competencies, which can be applied across any mix of roles. So that's a useful behavioural framework. But then from a technical skills perspective, we can also host those on the platform as well. And I also had another question on the chat from someone who's asking, do we have any templates for hard skills assessments such as IT or marketing? The answer is that we have customized these things for clients. We don't really have anything off the shelf. But for hard skills assessment, by which I assume you mean sort of technical skills for those roles, we can basically work with you to put something together. We have a good idea of the sorts of frameworks that would relate to different roles. Increasingly, what we're trying to do actually with the off-the-shelf assessments is to create profiles for different functions. So we might have an IT profile, a marketing profile, a finance profile, and there will be a different mix of behavioural and technical skills required for those roles, and they can be assessed through the multi-method, multi-stage assessments. So obviously, what we've seen in the past, maybe for investment banking, there's a particular focus on numerical skills for obvious reasons. The ability to be able to, do mental calculations quickly, that's a requirement for some organizations. So that's obviously an assessment we can put in place. We don't necessarily need to measure the other areas of cognitive ability, if that was the case. And there was another question from Hisham. Hi, Hisham. You were just asking about the case study. Can they present with charts? Yes, they can complete a PowerPoint presentation if you want them to. And then when the assessor connects with them virtually, they can present that back to them. That can be built into the assessment for sure. So yes, is the answer to that question.
Hi Hisham, it's Becky. I've just seen your next question. I'll answer this one. Yes, I think it's really about doing the same sort of engagement processes that you would do with participants with regular paper and pencil assessment centres. So it's the upfront communication, the onboarding them to the programme. So all of that will stay the same. We hope that by using the platform, they actually become more engaged. They can understand the process. So this will help them be equipped when they're in the session. Let me just read your question. Yeah, and the group activity, I think this is, really common common all of the time. Sometimes you find that actually on a virtual platform, people are more comfortable because they're behind the computer. Other times people aren't so. So again, it's just familiarizing them, explaining the process, explaining to them how the buttons work, what will happen. And you find that actually once you've done that, people do respond, do participate. We would always say beforehand for people, you know, to encourage them to speak, to share, you know, their insights. You know, we're not, you know, we're measuring them in a positive manner. We want to get the best out of the candidates and the participants. So yeah, just the same, but perhaps a bit more around the communication piece. Okay, are there any other questions from anybody? Or please do contact us separately afterwards. We're happy to have a call or via email or whatever's easier for you. But just conscious of time, I think if we move back to the slides and we can finish up. So just to say, thank you very much for attending this bite-size event. As you know, it's our first one, so please do give us feedback. We want to make these regular, you know, monthly. We want to make them the best that they can be for you and to give you information that is relevant and useful. And as I said at the beginning, we really want to create this community of like-minded professionals so that we can, you know, make assessment the best that it can be. You know, and we're always open to feedback for this. After the event, we're going to send you a copy of this recording. So if you want to refer back to it, you can. We will also send some additional resources. So we've got some case studies, some clients' testimonials and case studies from how they've used this assessment process. And we will also send you an invitation to our next bite-size event. So this will be in March. We're going to be joined by a guest speaker, and the topic is around talent acquisition and assessment. And thirdly, you know, if you would like any more information or a free audit on your current assessment process to see how it can be digitalized, please do let John or I know. And lastly, thank you very much for your participation and questions. And yeah, please do get in touch if you have anything further. Anything else to add, John?
No, thank you. Thank you, Becky, and thanks everyone for joining.